lineage-based, not your image or race. No different than CARICOM, so you can keep your African and run somewhere else with your marathon. Laugh now, cry later, cause we gon' laugh when you cry at the gator. Alligator, Alcatraz, there's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Code is the leader. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Code is the leader. Let us subscribe to FBA News and Updates. FBA News and Updates. Subscribe to FBA News and Updates. Subscribe. I heard tethers flock together, so if you hit one with a rock, then they'll drop together. Why cosplay except your own and be yourself? When you're left alone, you can feed yourself. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader. The code is the leader. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader.
Let me run that back again.
Yeah. Reparations are lineage-based, not your image or race. No different than CARICOM, so you can keep your African and run somewhere else with your marathon. Laugh now, cry later, cause we gon' laugh when you cry at the gator. Alligator, Alcatraz, there's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Code is the leader. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Code is the leader. Let us subscribe to FBA News and Updates. FBA News and Updates. Subscribe to FBA News and Updates. Subscribe. I heard tethers flock together, so if you hit one with a rock, then they'll drop together. Why cosplay except your own and be yourself? When you're left alone, you can feed yourself. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader. The code is the leader. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader.
Yeah, this is crazy, yeah. Hey, man. It's another one right here. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll play it back in a second. Let's get to some news and updates real quick. Okay. So government task force cracks down on illegal substance trail cropping of U.S. shops. We are taking decisive action to disrupt criminal networks. All right. Illegal substance. All right. Illegal immigrants, illegal substance. So G. Moon Duck Maximus, Salita Marie, Pinky Wells. We got IM6 in the building. Starting off later than what I normally would. I was ready at 8:30. I just was big, taking it easy. 3 anti-ICE influencers charged with stalking, doxing immigration agent on Instagram. A trio of anti-ICE influencers allegedly stalked an immigration enforcement officer back to his California home, then doxed him in an Instagram live stream sources told the Post, amid a surge of violence against ICE agents nationwide. These are some sick, listen, man, they gotta pass a law where these guys should really do some federal time. You dig? Because what are you doing that for? What do you hope to gain? You're hoping that something happened to these guys. Okay, so Cynthia Raygaza sounds like a tether. Sandra Carmona, definitely a tether. Semaine and Ashley Brown were indicted by a grand jury for posting footage revealing the unidentified ICE agent's personal home address outside Los Angeles and screaming, "ICE lives on your street and you should know," according to a federal criminal complaint that has not yet been made public. During during a court hearing Thursday, at which one of the suspects was denied bail, other anti-ICE agitators also disrupted proceedings, prompting three more arrests, adding a courthouse source with direct knowledge of the ruckus. Hell yeah. ICE out of freedom. Three females had tailed the officer on August 28th in a black sedan from the Los Angeles ICE field office to his home before hopping out wearing masks and beginning to film him and his wife in their driveway. Look at these sickos, yo. They began yelling and shouting out the personal home address and later threatening to throw a coffee cup at him during the Instagram live stream. Now, that right there, he should have been able to beat the hell out of him. According to the complaint filed in U.S. District Court for the Central District of California, September 5th. At one point, the women can be overheard on the live stream shouting, "La Migra lives here, and ICE lives on your street, and you should know," the complaint noted. Oh, I hope like hell they lock their ass up, man. Deport them. The Instagram accounts ICE out Ofla. Defend me Somer Defend Me So American Culture and Corn Maiden Design. Subsequently scrubbed the footage. The three face up to 10 years in prison and potential fines if convicted. Oh, I hope they serve every last year. Hope they serve every last year. The indictment, which alleges 2 counts of conspiracy and disclosing personal information of a federal agent, was handed down on the same day that an ICE gunman opened fire on federal officers at Dallas field office. Oh yeah, I hope like hell they get to 10 years. You dig, or close as possible. They think this shit a game. Okay, all right. So now we're gonna talk some reparations. This might be the closeout, right? This might be the finale, the grand finale. 'Cause I think we beat it up tremendously, but we crushed race-based reparations, and we pointed out the hypocrisy that I'm gonna point out again right now.
California Commission, I love what they wrote in their 400 or either 400 or 500 page document as a result of it. The problem I have with the California Commission is that it yielded to this idea of lineage-based reparations. There are this group, and you named the foundational Black Americans, as well as this group, ADOS, the American descendants of slaves, who believe that the only people entitled to reparations in this country are those who can trace their lineage directly to enslavement. There was a 5-4 vote to accept lineage-based reparations in the state of California on the commission. I disagree with that. I think that reparations should be race-based. I think that Black people in all of their walks of life, which is getting reparations for all African people on the thing. So,
yeah, this lineage-based reparations, which ADOS, and I understand they used another name in California.
The Freeman.
Yeah, because that Ados name is being discredited. The Freeman my butt. So you're going to go on lineage-based reparations, which is designed to further the objective of Ados and others that you have to be born here to get reparations. Well, what does born here mean? We all came from Africa or the Caribbean or somewhere else, but usually Africa and the Caribbean. So this is designed to exclude anyone that can't prove that they came from where. Because if you come from Africa, you didn't come from here. You know what I mean?
And furthermore, it also
included under your definition.
Right. And it also divides Black people. Can you imagine one person who was born or mother was born in Jamaica and then they were born here in the United States? They don't get reparations. This whole lineage-based stuff is just confusing.
All right. Well, let's confuse you. Like I said, these guys will never come over here. I invited them. They're not going to come. So this is a quick Google search. The CARICOM reparations movement is not based on race. Now, he just said he want a race-based reparation movement. The CARICOM reparations movement is not based on race, but rather on the lineage of those whose ancestors were victims of the transatlantic slave trade and indigenous genocide. It seeks justice and repair for the lasting harms inflicted by these crimes against humanity. Look right here. Focus on lineage and history, because it's not a based on race claim, reparation claim. Look, the initiative targets people of African descent whose ancestors were forcibly removed from Africa, okay, and subjected to chattel slavery in the Caribbean. It also includes a specific plan for indigenous Caribbean peoples who were victims of genocide. This is a lineage-based claim. And I would love to get those tethers on a phone to address that. And those African coons. I would love to get those tethers and Africans on the live to address that. Okay. Let me leave that right there. What is this? Okay, look at this one. Some more news and updates. ICE arrests leader of Iowa's largest school district, says he was living and working in U.S. illegally. Really, dude? Really? Come on, bruh. Des Moines, Iowa AP federal immigration agents targeted the well-liked leader of Iowa's largest school district in a traffic stop Friday and arrested him after he fled into the woods, leaving educators and community members. Yeah, this dude fled in the woods. Yeah, definitely the like button. It said that this tether fled in the goddamn woods, leaving educators and community members stunned. They're like, yo, why is he in the woods? U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement said Des Moines Public School Superintendent Ian Roberts was in the country illegally and had no work authorization. Roberts, who is from Guyana in South America, was considered an ICE fugitive because he was subject to a final removal order issued in 2024, the agency said. So why the hell he think he'll be protected? In Iowa, of all places. ICE said that it targeted Roberts for his arrest by initiating a traffic stop on Friday while he was driving in his school-issued vehicle. After he fled, dude, still fleeing, officers discovered his vehicle abandoned near a wooded area. Are you serious? He was eventually located and taken into ICE custody with the help of Iowa State Patrol officers. Yeah, you're in the wrong state, buddy. I don't believe Iowa is a sanctuary state. Roberts was brought to Woodbury County's jail in northwest Iowa late Friday afternoon, according to jail and ICE records. It was unclear if Roberts had an attorney to represent him. But let us know about Alligator Alcatraz, my boy. I don't think that's going to be a comfortable visit. All right, with that being said, let's get back to the intro.
Yeah. Reparations are lineage based, not your image or race. No different than CARICOM, so you can keep your African and run somewhere else with your marathon. Laugh now, cry later. Cause we gon' laugh when you cry at the gator. Alligator Alcatraz, there's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Code is the leader. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Code is the leader. Let us subscribe to FBA News and Updates. FBA News and Updates. Subscribe to FBA News and Updates. Subscribe. I heard tethers flock together, so if you hit one with a rock, then they'll drop together. Why cosplay except your own and be yourself? When you're left alone, you can feed yourself. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader. The code is the leader. There's no soul leader.
This is the FBA soundtrack.
The code is the leader.
Run that back one more time.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Reparations are lineage based,
That's
not your image or race. No different than CARICOM, so you can keep your African and run somewhere else with your marathon. Laugh now, cry later. Cause we gon' laugh when you cry at the gator. Alligator Alcatraz, there's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Code is the leader. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Code is the leader. Let us subscribe to FBA News and Updates. FBA News and Updates. Subscribe to FBA News and Updates. Subscribe. I heard tethers flock together, so if you hit one with a rock, then they'll drop together. Why cosplay except your own and be yourself? When you're left alone, you can feed yourself. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Code is the leader. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader.
All right, let's get back to the research. Okay, so let me go here. Let's go further. Okay, so this is, I told you that this is probably the grand finale, about reparations. I think we did a good job, but who knows? Who knows what the future holds, all right? But gotta document this. So I didn't know that there was an NCOBRA like national and then a Philly branch. So it seems like they are out of touch when it comes to who should get reparations. So this is the Philadelphia Reparations Commission. This is interesting. Okay, it says establishing a Philadelphia Reparations Commission. NCOBRA Philly is petitioning the city of Philadelphia to establish a reparations commission to redress and recompense the descendants of Africans enslaved in the United States and those Black and African American descendants of Negro and colored Americans in the United States of America, the allodial return of their seized and stolen land, the capital of their seized and stolen property and assets, the value of their forced and coerced labor, and the repair of their peoplehood. Interesting choice of words, I must say. The share of people who represent this community have a poverty rate that is twice greater than their share among the general population. While they only represent 13.2% of the total population in the United States, they make up 23.8% of the population in poverty. In Philadelphia, which has the highest poverty rate of the 10 largest cities in the United States, more than 25% of the 1.579 million residents living in Philadelphia are living in poverty. Of the 40% residents that represent the Black or African American community, 30.8% of them live in poverty. The school system, municipal services, medical treatment, political accountability, access and opportunity, and rites of passage that make whole a community have been compromised, as seen in the astronomical rates of violence the city has experienced. Herein lies the need for careful yet urgent attention to the need for reparation. Okay. So it says defining and identifying the redress group. This is gonna shock you guys. In Cobra, Philly understands peoplehood to be defined and developed by the people, for the people, and believes that true reparation supports succession, sovereignty, and self determination. Peoplehood, as defined by succession, sovereignty, and self determination, substantiates the rights to liberty, independence, freedom, and emancipation, especially from a de facto jurisdiction, particularly from nations responsible for their enslavement and subjection to feudal laws, under the pretense of de jure citizenship and democracy. This includes any and all colorable law, pseudonyms, and misnomers used to acknowledge them, and is why in Cobra, Philadelphia uses the acronym DIOS for descendants of Africans enslaved in the United States, and accepts the terms Afro-Indigenous Americans, Native Black American, and descendants of U.S. freedmen, as each of these identifiers delineate from the redress group of American Negro ancestors and antecedents to whom, that god damn, where's the period? To whom this redress is warranted. So they purposely left out FBA and ADOS. Yeah, these some haters. In Cobra, Philadelphia acknowledges the distinct ethnic quality of the often previously identified American Negro from other Black or African migrant groups, as the redress group's antecedents have been in the Americas since before the Declarations of Independence and formation of the United States, and their ancestors have been in the United States since before the Emancipation Proclamation. So it made I guess, a distinction right here. It tried to, but this why is so wordy? Why is so wordy? Since 1619 to 1865, more than 4 million of their ancestors were enslaved in the United States and the colonies that became the United States of America from the continental mainlands and islands of Africa and the Americas, and have been preemptively misnomered and identified as Negro, colored, Black. Okay, so they got a problem with Black and African American. I guess they don't. They just giving the names that I don't know what they're doing here. Having been subversely subjected to the laws pertaining to those titles and disconnected from their actual and pre-existing tribal and ethnic identities, nationalities, and birthrights, subversely being nationalized as United States citizens, to which they have been prisoners of war. Now, this is some wordy stuff, and it almost sounds like they're trying to make us African, like Africans are living in America. Living in America. I'm not gonna read all this shit right here, though. I'll tell you that right now. It's like a whole bunch of just stuff, a whole bunch of words. Um, okay, so this is the part where you try to add everybody in it, and because Cobra has a bunch of tethers on the board. So in Cobra, Philadelphia believes in the establishment of reparations commissions at the local, state, and federal level, yet understands that other entities and nations were also participants in the transatlantic slave trade and global crimes against the humanity of the identified redress group, and does not limit reparations to redress and recompenses solely from the United States. Well, shit, you better be adding Africa in there. It says, furthermore, understands that reparations to the redress group may socially and politically unite them with the diaspora in the continent of Africa, throughout the Americas, the West. What the? Um, yeah, it's just a bunch of words, like really. Yeah, just a bunch of words here. All right, so that was the Philadelphia branch, right? Philadelphia, right there. Okay, so let's see here. All right, so this is This is supposed to be NAARC, right? NAARC means a whole bunch of bullshit. National African American Reparations Commission. They don't want to be black, man. I gotta play that Malcolm clip. Okay, so they want a formal apology, all this Maafa garbage. Okay, but number two is interesting. I was reading this, family, and it said the right of repatriation and creation of an African knowledge program. Oh shit. But when I was reading this, I was like, what? It says the descendants of the millions of Africans who were stolen from Africa. Uh-oh. Who the hell stole us? So this wording is already garbage. This is already garbage. What, the guy in the woods that ran in the woods? Yeah, this is already garbage. The descendants of the millions of Africans who were stolen from Africa. Right there, I stopped reading. Let me put this in the chat in case I want to read this garbage. Peace, Felicia Cox. I had to stop reading. Okay, go ahead, man. It said the descendants of the millions of Africans who were stolen from Africa. Family, when you want to lie like that, you have no reparations claim at all. This is already a nothing burger. Now it's like really disrespectful and discreditable. Who the hell stole us from Africa? So this is their way to omit Africa from the atrocities they want to label and the nations that took it, that were largely involved in the transatlantic slave trade, which is a lot of African countries. Okay. So we were not stolen, we were sold. Okay. So the stolen part wants you to believe that Africa had no involved in the transatlantic slave trade. The descendants of the millions. So this is NAARC, National African Reparations Commission. You can see it's already garbage. You can't take this serious. So we were stolen from Africa and transported to the strange lands of the Americas against their will to enrich the captors. Enrich their captors have a right to return to the motherland. Wait, what? Of the Americas against their will to enrich their captors have a right. Yeah, that don't make sense. Do it, family. That's like a typo, a grammar malfunction there. The descendants of the millions of Africans who were stolen from Africa and transported to the strange lands of the Americas against their will to enrich their captors have a right to return. Okay. It's just a lot of words, like no punctuation marks. To enrich their captors have a right. Let me just make sure. Like a lot of words. Like this was wordy as hell. Okay. Why so damn wordy? All right, anyway. Against their will to enrich their captors have a right. I get it now. Have a right to return to the motherland to an African nation of their choice. Really? African Americans who choose to exercise the right to return will be provided with sufficient monetary resources to become productive citizens in their new home and shall be aided in their resettlement by a black control agency funded by the federal government to perform this. Yeah, all right. This is a complete nothing burger. So you're so stolen. So I mean, this part right here makes it garbage. Like this would never go anywhere. Like you would never get something past a line like that. These white folks gonna be like stolen. What the hell is that? All right, so just on that, I know this. I stopped reading this garbage. Stolen, stop. So this is who should receive reparations and in what forms. This is some other Encobra garbage. Let me see. Let me click that one. Who should receive reparations and in what form? Statement by the National African American Reparations Commission. Who's seen what I already read? Okay, eligibility. Here we go. While NAARC welcomes principled collaboration and dialogue on the issue of eligibility, there's a troubling and potentially dangerous debate percolating within Black America today. Oh, shit. There are forces associated or previously associated with the relatively new organization, American Descendants of Slaves, aka ADOS, which are forcefully advocating the position that reparations should be limited to the period of enslavement in America between 1619 and 1865 and should only benefit those persons who can prove direct genetic lineage to a people who were enslaved during this period. Oh boy. So hold on. So CARICOM can do it, but yeah, this is wild. Yeah, let me put this in the chat. I'm going to read this and laugh. Okay. Yeah, damn, they attacking ADOS. God damn. All right, whether well-meaning or not, this position is well outside the mainstream of the heroic multi-generational struggle for reparations in this country. The posture embraced by the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparation in America, NCOBRA, affiliated organizations like Black Lives Matter, BLM, Movement for Black Lives, M4BL, Black Americans Leading Civil Rights Legacy Organizations, the NAACP, National Urban League, Rainbow Push Coalition, National Congress of Black Women. What is this? National Council of Negro Women, National ACT Network, and prominent voices for reparations like Danny Glover, Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee, and Congresswoman Barbara Lee. NAARC also rejects this restrictive eligibility framework along with its chilling implications. So they don't want lineage based. This okay, what do you want then? In the most basic terms, NAARC advances a simple, expansive, and inclusive definition of eligibility for reparations for African Americans, Black people, all Black people who were harmed by America in America should be repaired by America in America. Wow. All Black people. Now we know they're read only Black people, but they're called Black too. So all Black people, which technically just us, just FBA, but let's tag on the tethers. They're saying we take this position because the focus on who can prove a direct lineage to the enslavement era contains two major false assumptions. First, that lineage in all or even most cases can be directly proved. It can. Second, that reparations are only due for the period of enslavement in the U.S. history. Okay. NAARC emphatically rejects both assumptions. We ask proponents of reparations based solely on lineage how much genetic material must be identified in one's blood from the enslavement era in order to be eligible for reparations. Yeah, y'all don't want to have this debate with us. Factually, the genetics of people of African descent, Black people in the United States, are the result of the amalgamation of multiple lineages from this country, Africa, and the diaspora. Okay, there are ancestors who were originally kidnapped. Uh-oh, now we got kidnapped. So they were stolen, now they kidnapped. Let's make your mind up. There are our ancestors who were originally kidnapped and illegally transported to what would become the U.S. to be held as indentured servants and enslaved people. Who the hell kidnapped us? Who stole us? It goes back to that question. There are those who were impacted by deliberate forced separation from their original ethnic groups, the systematic rape of, oh my God, forced slave breeding, co-mingling, whatever. Now watch this. People of this land, decades-long migrations of African descendant people to the U.S. from the Caribbean, Central and South America, and other races and other areas who within 1 to 2 generation fuse into a new Black community in America to become African Americans. Yeah, they lost all of their mind. They lost all of their mind. Talking about people from the Caribbean, Central and South America, and other races who within 1 to 2 generations fused into a new black community in America to become African Americans. Yeah, y'all could be African Americans all you want. You're definitely foundational. And there are migrants from Africa who have arrived in the U.S. in the past 40 years. So tag them on too, right? I told you this Nothing Burger has a bunch of Africans on their Now look. Just imagine the absurdity that according to the ADOS blood lineage requirements, Malcolm X, now he's FBA by the way, Shirley Chisholm, Marcus Garvey, like look at these ridiculous names they're just thrown out there. Would not be eligible for any form of reparations. Oh, President, they said Kamala. Yo, they can't be serious, bro. They said Vice President Kamala Harris and President Obama, this dude's from Kenya, would not be eligible for any form of reparations. In addition, as noted in the preamble to NAARC's 10 point, whatever, I ain't reading that bullshit. The injuries, harms inflicted on formerly enslaved Africans and newly arrived immigrants from Africa, the Caribbean, Central Africa. Just give everybody black money. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my. Yeah, this is crazy. I ain't gonna lie. I did not expect to read this. That caught me off guard. Okay. One second. One second, family. Doing some research in the back. All right. Yeah, they lost all of their mind. They said even African immigrants who came over here in the last 40 years should be included to, yeah, they lost all of their Barracuda mind. Okay, now this supposedly is CARICOM. Oh yeah, this is CARICOM. So I was reading, you know what I mean? I do some reading, family. I do some reading. Okay, so I was reading even CARICOM website of how they made it clear, define and enforce African slave and native genocide as in the national interest. They were making it clear it is just for uh, this is lineage based. Okay, they made it very clear. I was reading theirs, but they tripped me off when they got to this right here, repatriation. over 10 million Africans were stolen from their homes and forcibly transported to the Caribbean. Stolen? Who stole them? Family, they're just lying to themselves. They don't want to admit, like, this is wild. Who can take these? No wonder nothing, they're both nothing burgers, CARICOM and NAARC and Cobra. They're flat out lying and don't want to admit that Africa sold us to Europe, to Europeans. Why, what is the point of lying? Like, come on, it's just commonly known. Repatriation. Over 10 million Africans were stolen from their homes and forcibly transported to the Caribbean as the enslaved chattel and property of Europeans. The transatlantic slave trade is the largest forced migration in human history and has no parallel in terms of, look, it calls it a slave trade, but don't talk about the sellers or the buyers. They say it was stolen. If something is stolen, it's not a slave trade. Family, if you stole watches from a store, you didn't trade. There's no bartering system. The descendants of these stolen, look. This is wild. The descendants of these stolen people have a legal right to return to their homeland. Wait, how? You were not stolen from, you were not stolen from their homeland. You were sold from their homeland. Yeah, this is family. Y'all seeing for yourselves. That's why I call my channel FBA News and Updates. I feel like I do some good unique research. Okay. It's crazy. All right. So let me play the intro.
Yeah. Reparations are lineage based, not your image or race. No different than CARICOM, so you can keep your African and run somewhere else with your marathon. Laugh now, cry later. Cause we gon' laugh when you cry at the gator. Alligator, Alcatraz, there's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Code is the leader. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Code is the leader. Better subscribe to FBA News and Updates. FBA News and Updates. Subscribe to FBA News and Updates. Subscribe. I heard tethers flock together, so if you hit one with a rock, then they'll drop together. Why cosplay except your own and be yourself? When you're left alone, you can feed yourself. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader. The code is the leader. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Like
They mad as hell. The code is the leader, right? So right here, I mean, the lies are just crazy, yo. It's the lies are just crazy. So anyway, I looked at this. Okay, this is NAARC. This is France signals willingness to discuss reparations for colonial massacres in Niger. Okay. With French government says it's open to dialogue, but does not acknowledge responsibility in letters seen by The Guardian. So now, remember, they're against lineage-based reparations. So we're going to have our handout over here. Okay, so let's see if they are going to be specific. France remains open to bilateral dialogue with the Nigerian authorities. Okay. So it says they killed thousands of unarmed people and looted supplies, terrorizing local people in compliance. The next year, Niger became officially absorbed into French West Africa, right? So it says an estimated 400 people were massacred in a day. Entire villages along with Missions Path, including Tiberi, Zinder, and smaller communities, were burned and looted, with corpses hung at their entrances. Some survivors fled to neighboring Nigeria and never returned. Okay. Mm-hmm. A year later, Paris acknowledged the 1945 massacre of tens of thousands of Algerian civilians in Sétif. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and watch this. There was a bureaucratic cover up, and accounts of survivors' descendants have been weak or subdued, often to decades of silence and trauma. So this sounds like lineage based to me. Da, 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 da. The African Union has labeled 2025 the year of reparations. Yeah, all right. Whatever, yeah. Okay, so we are not beggars, he said. Our demand for reparation is not systematically that we are giving money, but that first of all, France recognizes whatever. Yeah, I now let's ask them, should these reparations be lineage based or should everybody get a piece of this? Foundation Black Americans. No intro, feed yourself. Yeah, man. That's crazy, right? They want to be taken serious. CARICOM and NAARC and Cobra. They want to be taken serious, but they're saying that Africans were kidnapped by Europeans. That's what they're implying because they're not they're saying uh, they're mentioning a victim and they're mentioning a victim and they're mentioning a culprit or a suspect. But the Africans who sold us, they're not listed at all. Anyway, so we just read in Cobra, NARC, they're basically saying reparations should be given to all black people in America, regardless of lineage, meaning descendants of U.S. chattel slavery and post 1965 African and Caribbean immigrants. I guarantee you, family, Latinos is like, hey. East Indians like, wait a minute. European immigrants, remember that Chinese Exclusion Act, 1882, I think it is. They like, wait a minute. Remember that Asian hate bill? Oh no, check for us. Okay, so obviously FBA Adolf's position is reparations must be lineage based. They hate that. They call Adolf out by name, specifically to the descendants of those enslaved in the United States 1619, 1865, whose exploitation directly built the American economy and whose families were denied generational wealth through Jim Crow, redlining, land theft, and mass incarceration, etc. Right? The wealth gap is largely given to white folks and extracted from us. I don't recall Tethers taking part of that. Okay, here's the issue with Cobra and NARC. Um, their position effectively blurs the historical injury. So reparations, by definition, it must be tied, as I read yesterday. Okay, it must be tied to a specific state crime. Just as Holocaust reparations go to Jewish survivors and descendants of victims of Nazi Germany, not to all Jews worldwide, U.S. reparations should be tied to the specific documented lineage of U.S. chattel slavery and its after effects. Broadening eligibility dilutes the claim and risks making it politically unviable. Family, they're trying to sabotage our reparations claim by broadening it. Okay. They argue that proving lineage is too difficult and that people's ancestry is an amalgamation of multiple lineages, Afro-Caribbean, U.S. Oh, it's just so hard. They call it absurd that figures like Malcolm X, Caribbean parents, or Kamala Harris, Jamaican, Indian, wouldn't qualify under lineage claims. Family, they're gaslighting, as the Holy FBA would say, the Holy FBA Codex would say, they're gaslighting. Okay, but anyway, that's a straw man. So providing lineage is no harder than proving eligibility for Native American tribal membership, Japanese internment reparations, or Holocaust survivor programs. No difficult than that. No more difficult than that. Census records, Freedmen's Bureau archives, and genealogy databases exist for exactly this purpose. The inclusion of Caribbean or African immigrants, the inclusion of Caribbean or African immigrants in the 20th century, she said Marcus Garvey, Shirley Chisholm, etc., does not erase the fact that the federal government's crime was against the descendants of U.S. slavery. So just because Marcus Garvey scanned us and Shirley Chisholm got into Congress in 1968, what they got to do with the crime against us? Reparations are not a thank you for your activism payout. They are compensation for state-sponsored crimes. By their logic, any black person in the world, whoever faced racism in America, should be eligible, which erases the specificity, I can't say this word for nothing, specificity of the reparations case. Oh my God, these damn words. They're tongue tires for me. Okay, so they say all black people who were harmed by America in America should be repaired. They point to Amadou Diallo, Guinean immigrant shot by NYPD. Or I'm sure he got a bag. His family got a bag for that. Or Abner Luima, Haitian brutalized by NYPD, as examples of immigrant victims of systemic racism. Family, these are examples of civil rights violations, not crimes against humanity tied to lineage. Police brutality is a systemic problem, but it is not unique to descendants of U.S. slavery, and it should be addressed via civil rights lawsuits, police reform, or broader anti-racism initiatives. Reparations are not just a payout for being black in America, they are restorative justice for stolen wealth and centuries of unpaid labor tied directly to one people. If we expand eligibility to all black people, we turn reparations into an anti-racism welfare program rather than a targeted justice claim. That's legally weaker and politically easier to dismiss. Family, these folks are trying to sabotage our reparations claim purposely with their dumbass argument. Historical misrepresentation they are faced with. They claim harms like the Homestead Act, land theft, GI Bill discrimination, FHA redlining, etc. apply to immigrants too. What's going on here? That's a false equivalence. Most of those harms occurred before the 1965 Immigration Act that opened America to large-scale African and Caribbean immigration. What are you talking about? We're not here. Black immigrants arriving in the 1970s to the 1990s were not systematically excluded from the Homestead Act, 1862, FHA, 1930s and 60s, or GI Bill discrimination, 1940s and 50s. What is he talking about? Those programs specifically harm multi-generational U.S. black families. Those ancestors had already been here for centuries. Immigrants largely arrived after those discriminatory structures were in decline or being dismantled. Family, their argument is so legally weak. When that Libyan dude was arguing scrutiny and all this type of stuff, their stuff, he's talking about their case. He's talking about their cases. So international law, e.g. UN reparations proceedings, require specific victims groups. Lineage strengthens the case. Race-based claims water it down. Politically unrealistic. Expanding eligibility to include millions of post-1965 immigrants undermines the depth-old narrative and makes reparations look like a generic black welfare program. It's morally muddled. Is morally muddled. Equates recent migrants who voluntarily came to the U.S., often for better opportunities, with descendants of people forced into slavery and denied wealth for centuries. It's contradictory. They can support CARICOM reparations that are lineage-based for Caribbean descendants of slavery colonialism, but reject FBA reparations for the exact same reason. That's the definition of hypocrisy. So, reparations are not about race solidarity. They're about repairing a specific historical crime, just as Germany doesn't pay reparations to all oppressed people, but specifically to Holocaust victims and descendants. The U.S. debt is to the descendants of its enslaved population. Civil rights violations against immigrants are real and should be addressed, but they are not part of our reparations claim. Okay, so you can really miss us with that. All right, family. So that should be the grand finale on reparations. I mean, like I might do it like a quick recap, but unless there's some new videos that's resurfacing, I think we pretty much done reparations for a while. So that's how I feel. Let's see if new information comes out. Let's see. But I think we like cooked this subject entirely. Like we cooked the people who were talking the most trash about FBA ADOS lineage-based reparations. So with that, I'm gonna leave you guys with the now outro, and we'll pick up tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, I'm gonna do the live on fact checking Jared Taylor arguments against Tariq Nasheed. Family, love you. Like the video, subscribe, notification bell. Let's get specific and name names, right? Family, I'm gonna leave you with the outro. We are out, yo. Peace.
Yeah. Reparations are lineage based, not your image or race. No different than CARICOM, so you can keep your African and run somewhere else with your marathon. Laugh now, cry later. Cause we gon' laugh when you cry at the gator. Alligator Alcatraz, there's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Code is the leader. There's no soul leader. The code is the leader. Code is the leader. Better subscribe to FBA News and Updates. FBA News and Updates. Subscribe to FBA News and Updates. Subscribe. I heard tethers flock together, so if you hit one with a rock, then they'll drop together. Why cosplay except your own and be yourself? When you're left alone, you can feed yourself. There's no soul